welcome to this microclass. Today we will touch base with some emphatic devices in English. As Roman Jacobson pointed out, one major function of language is to put emphasis on some specific information we want to convey. Of course, this is also true in writing. Emphasis in writing is important not only to create variety and maintain interest, but also to help readers easily glean the main points from the text. There are many ways to emphasize the important points. At word level, we might use emphatic pronouns or adverb intensifiers to call the reader's attention. At sentence level, we might use coordination and subordination, parallelism, repetition, passive voice, etc. to emphasize. Now we will have a look at these means one by one. At word level, we can use emphatic pronouns and adverb intensifiers to emphasize. You can pause the video now and read how to use these words to emphasize. And then we're going to have a look at emphatic devices at sentence level. Use coordination for equal ideas. Coordination means combining sentences or sentence parts that have matching grammatical forms and connecting them using conjunctions such as and, or, so, and but. Conjunctive adverbs such as however, therefore, hence, and nevertheless, or semicolons. When using conjunctions to coordinate ideas, you can use a coordinating with conjunction. Coordinating ideas using and, or, and similar words is quite easy. However, because of this, coordination is often overused. Your writing will generally be more effective if you use subordination to more clarify, relate ideas that are in fact less important. Let's have a look at some example sentences to illustrate the differences before and after using subordination. The original sentence is like, Mr. Damon arrived for the meeting and he saw that the decision had already been made. And the revised version is, when Mr. Damon arrived at the meeting, he saw that the decision had already been made. Use subordination for unequal ideas. Subordination means combining two related ideas that are not equal. In such cases, the more important idea is part of the main clause and the less important idea is part of the subordinate clause. Such clauses are often introduced by subordinating conjunctions, such as although, as, furthermore, unless, because, though, if, and so on. Subordinating ideas can also be set off by relative pronouns, such as that, which, and who. Here are some examples. You can pause the video and have a look at the examples here. Less important ideas can also be structured as part of a participle phrase at the beginning of a sentence and combined with the main idea in a second sentence to form one sentence from two. For example, I left early one evening from work. I saw a beautiful sunrise on the way home. Can be revised as leaving early one evening from work. I saw a beautiful sunrise on the way home. As shown by the examples above, subordination is a very worthwhile tool to help emphasize the most important points in your writing. Be careful, however, not to cram too many ideas into one sentence. If a sentence seems too long, especially when discussing complex ideas, divide the sentence into smaller pieces so that your reader don't become bogged down or confused. In addition to using coordination and subordination, emphasis in writing can be achieved in several other ways. One of these is by parallelism. Another is by using occasional short sentences. Another way is to employ judicious repetition. Yet another is to use passive voice, inversion, or cleft sentences. A fifth is through contrast. A sixth is by putting the most important words or phrases, that is, the most important points, at the end of a sentence. And finally, you can occasionally create emphasis through punctuation and typographical elements. Parallelism. Parallel structure in a sentence naturally emphasizes paired ideas or ideas listed in a series. Constructions that compare or contrast paired ideas naturally draw attention to the words that emphasize those pairs. Here are some examples. They resolved never to talk about each other, but always to talk with each other. These mountains to the west are beautiful, yet the mountains to the east are even more lovely. For items in a series, parallel structure generally emphasizes the last item. For this reason, the final item should usually be the most important. Here are some examples. You can pause the video and read those example sentences on your own. Short sentences are also used to emphasize. As mentioned above, using too many short sentences causes writing to seem needlessly choppy or repetitious. An occasional short sentence, however, not only helps to keep readers' interest by staving off an overabundance of long sentences, but it is also a simple way to emphasize an idea. Here is an example paragraph. You can pause the video and read this paragraph on your own. Repetition. Use judicious repetition to emphasize an idea or main point. Though repetition can irritate if it is used overmuch, it can be a very effective tool when used appropriately and without overkill. Repetition is particularly useful when employed in conjunction with parallel constructs. In the following example, repetition helps drive home the point the speaker is making. Strangers aren't always somewhere out there. Sometimes they are the people in your home. A stranger isn't always someone else. Sometimes he's a person in your soul. So here in this paragraph, repetition can help burn an image into a reader's mind or simply reinforce an important point. But again, do not overuse repetition in your writing, as doing so can make your writing overly long and dull. Now we are going to have a look at the use of passive. The passive voice is used when focusing on the person or thing affected by an action. Generally, more emphasis is given to the beginning of a sentence. By using a passive sentence, we emphasize by showing what happens to something rather than who or what does something. Example, reports are expected by the end of the week. In this example, attention is called to what is expected of students, reports. And also we can use inversion to emphasize. We invert the word order by placing a prepositional phrase or another expression at the very beginning of a sentence, followed by inverted word order. Now let's have a look at some example sentences. At no time did I say you couldn't come. Or hardly had I arrived when he started complaining. We can also use cleft sentences to emphasize. Sentences introduced by it is, or it was, are often used to emphasize a specific subject or object. The introductory clause is then followed by a relative pronoun. Here are some examples. It was I who received the promotion. It is the awful weather that drives him crazy. Sentences introduced by a clause beginning with what are also used to emphasize a specific subject or object. The clause introduced by what is employed as the subject of the sentences, as is followed by the verb to be. Examples, What we need is a good long shower. What he thinks isn't necessarily true. Using contrasting words or phrases is another way to emphasize particular points on ideas. As with repetition, contrast is particularly effective when combined with parallelism. Example: he's not smart as a surgeon, but rather crafty as a fox. When we speak, the emphasis naturally comes at the end of the sentence. Our voices gradually rise toward the end of a sentence before abruptly falling. Thus, when writing, a simple, effective way is to emphasize main ideas and important concepts is to structure your sentence so that the words you want emphasized come at the end of a sentence. For example, death and taxes are the only things certain in this life. We can revise the sentence into the only things certain in this life are death and taxes. Punctuation and typography. Punctuation or typographic elements can be used occasionally to emphasize a word, phrase, or sentence. In general, the more formal the type of writing, the less such devices should be used. In most cases, other techniques, such as those mentioned above, are preferred. The most common punctuation mark used for emphasis is the exclamation point. However, it is never appropriate in formal writing to use more than one exclamation point. A question mark and exclamation point should not be used together in formal writing. The typographical device most commonly used for emphasis is italics. Bold and italics can also be used together, though this device should be used very rarely. All caps are also used sometimes, particularly when introducing an important note or warning. Underlining is best avoided, as underlining can make text more difficult to read. In some documents, a distinct font such as sans serif font, when the main text is serif, is used to draw readers' attention to important information. This technique can be very effective when used appropriately. Below are some examples of sentences that have been revised to better use emphasis. You can pause the video and read those sentences on your own. To recap, in this video, we had a look at a number of ways to add emphasis to your sentences in English. Use these forms to emphasize your statements when you are expressing your opinions, disagreeing, making strong suggestions, expressing annoyance, etc. can greatly enhance your writing ability. Hope this introduction of emphatic devices in English can be of some help for your writing. Thank you for watching and see you next time.